They tell you desire is beautiful, that it is passion, love, fire, the proof that you are alive. But Carl Jung warned us, desire is not what you think. It doesn't give. It takes. It doesn't heal. It betrays. And if you have ever mistaken desire for love, you already know the truth. What begins as ecstasy always ends as pain. Think back to the times you felt consumed by someone. At first, it felt divine. Your body rushed with energy. Your heart refused to slow. Your mind couldn't think of anything else. You thought it was love. You swore it was destiny. But Jung would tell you, it was desire, wearing love's mask. And desire always betrays you in the end. Why? Because desire doesn't care about truth. It doesn't care about soul, or connection, or wholeness. Desire is hunger. It's need. It's your unconscious, demanding satisfaction, pulling you toward what you lack, dressing it as beauty so you don't resist. Jung explained that desire comes from the shadow, the hidden parts of yourself you deny. And because you don't see it, you don't control it. That's why it feels overwhelming. That's why it feels like destiny. Because it's not your conscious mind choosing. It's your shadow dragging you where it wants. And what happens when you arrive? At first, desire feeds you. You feel alive. You feel chosen. You feel complete. But soon, the illusion cracks. The person you swore was perfect reveals their flaws. The flame that once burned hot leaves ashes behind. The longing turns into resentment, the passion into emptiness. You ask yourself, what happened? How could something so strong die so quickly? Jung would answer, because it was never love. It was desire, and desire cannot sustain itself. It always burns out, and when it does, it betrays you. Think of history's greatest tragedies. Empires collapsing because kings couldn't resist forbidden love. Leaders ruined because of secret affairs. Families destroyed because of obsessions disguised as romance. These are not random mistakes. They are proof of Jung's warning. Desire always promises more than it can deliver. It tells you, this is the one. This is the thing. This is what you've been waiting for. And then it abandons you when the hunger shifts. Jung believed this betrayal happens because desire projects the missing pieces of yourself onto another person. You don't see them. You see your shadow reflected in them. And because you don't recognize the projection, you confuse it with love. You believe they complete you, when in truth, they only mirror what you refuse to face. And when the projection fades, so does the attraction. You feel betrayed, but the betrayal was always built into the illusion. Here's the darker truth. Desire doesn't just betray by disappearing. Sometimes it betrays by binding. Have you ever chased someone you knew was bad for you, but you couldn't stop? Have you ever returned again and again to a toxic relationship, calling it passion even while it destroyed you? Jung explained that this is desire's cruelest trick. It convinces you that suffering is love, that obsession is destiny, that pain means depth. But the truth is, your unconscious is replaying wounds, trying to resolve them through desire. You think you are chasing a person, but you are chasing your shadow. And shadows always betray. Jung once said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. Where power predominates, there love is lacking." Desire always hides power. It seeks to own, to dominate, to control. That's why so many relationships built on desire collapse into jealousy, manipulation, and pain. Because what looked like connection was really possession. And possession always destroys what it touches. Think of the moments you confused desire for love. At first, you told yourself, "This time, it's real." But later, you saw the cycle repeat. The same arguments, the same disappointments, the same heartbreak. Jung would say, of course, because desire is cyclical. It rises, it consumes, it betrays. And unless you face the shadow beneath it, you will keep repeating the pattern forever. And here's the harshest part. Desire doesn't only betray you in relationships. It betrays you in life. The car you swore would make you happy. The job you thought would finally give you worth. The possessions, the status, the recognition, all of them fueled by desire. And every time you achieved them, the satisfaction faded. Why? Because the shadow doesn't want truth. It wants endless hunger. It wants more, always more. And every time you give in, you feel empty again. That's desire's betrayal. It promises fulfillment, but leaves you starving. This is the dark truth Jung wanted us to see. Desire cannot complete you, because it doesn't come from completeness. It comes from the shadow, from what you deny, repress, and refuse to face. And until you bring the shadow into the light, desire will keep using you, betraying you, breaking you. Desire's betrayal becomes clearest when we step into real life. Jung explained that desire always enters through the unconscious, through your wounds, your insecurities, and the parts of yourself you refuse to face. And because of this, it always disguises itself as love, passion, or purpose. Let's break this down with the patterns you've already seen in your own life. Start with relationships. Imagine a man who feels unseen, ignored, unworthy. His unconscious craves recognition. Then one day, he meets a woman who pays him attention. She praises him, flatters him, makes him feel like he finally matters. He swears it is love. He says, "No one has ever understood me like this." But Jung would say, it is not love, it is desire. He has projected his unmet need for validation onto her, and as long as she feeds it, the fire burns. But the moment she stops, the moment she withdraws affection, the passion turns into resentment. He feels betrayed, but the betrayal was always waiting. Because what he loved was not her. It was his own shadow reflected in her. Now picture a woman who grew up abandoned. Deep down, she fears being left behind. Then she meets someone who gives her intense attention, but also keeps her insecure. They disappear for days, then reappear with passion. They withdraw love, then flood her with it. She calls it destiny. She says, "I've never felt a connection this strong." But Jung would say, this is the shadow at work. Her fear of abandonment has turned into a leash. She mistakes the cycle of withdrawal and return for love, but it is really manipulation, and she is addicted to it. This is how desire betrays, by making pain feel like passion. Jung believed this is why so many people stay in toxic relationships. It's not because they don't see the red flags. It's because desire blinds them. The shadow tells them, this suffering means depth. This obsession means love. And so they remain, even when every part of them is breaking. Because the unconscious has convinced them that betrayal is romance. But it doesn't stop with lovers. Desire betrays in friendships too. Have you ever had a friend you clung to because they seemed more confident, more charismatic, more powerful? You told yourself you admired them. But beneath that admiration was desire, the unconscious hunger to steal a piece of what they had. You projected your missing qualities onto them. At first, it felt like inspiration, but eventually it turned into envy, resentment, or dependence. The friendship collapsed, not because of one fight, but because desire betrayed the bond by poisoning it with shadow. Even family can be shaped by desire's betrayal. A parent who never achieved their dreams unconsciously pushes their child to fulfill them instead. They say, "I only want the best for you." But what they mean is, "I want you to complete my unfinished story." The child mistakes this pressure for love, for care, but later realizes it was control disguised as affection. The parent's desire betrays the child's independence. And when the child breaks free, the parent feels abandoned, not realizing they betrayed the relationship long ago by confusing desire with love. And let's not forget society. Desire fuels entire economies. Advertisers know exactly how to trigger your unconscious. They don't sell products, they sell desire. They whisper, "You are not enough until you buy this. You are not attractive until you wear this. You are not powerful until you own this." You think you are making a free choice, but really, your shadow has been hijacked. And once the excitement of buying fades, you feel betrayed. You thought it would complete you, but instead, you are empty again. This is desire's universal betrayal. It never gives what it promises. Now here's the cruel twist. Desire not only betrays you by leaving you empty, it betrays you by chaining you. Have you ever noticed how the things you desire most also control you the most? The lover you can't let go of, even though they hurt you. The approval you can't stop chasing, even though it destroys your peace. The possessions you can't stop working for, even though they drain your soul. Desire gives you just enough to keep you chasing, but never enough to free you. It is a leash disguised as a gift, and the more you follow it, the tighter the leash becomes. Jung explained this betrayal using the concept of projection. He said, we fall in love not with people, but with our projections of them. We project our shadow, our missing half, onto them. They appear radiant, perfect, destined. But in truth, they are carrying a part of us we have disowned. And because of this, the relationship is doomed from the start. Once the projection fades, once reality intrudes, the magic vanishes. And the person we thought was the one becomes a stranger. We feel betrayed, but it was never their betrayal. It was desire betraying us through projection. Have you ever wondered why the people you desire most often hurt you the most? Jung would say, because the unconscious doesn't choose based on truth. It chooses based on wounds. The lover you crave is often the one who mirrors your shadow. That's why you can't resist them. That's why you keep returning, even when you know better. It's not logic pulling you. It's the shadow's hunger. And because the shadow cannot give you wholeness, the story always ends the same way, with betrayal. Think of the patterns in your life. How many times have you said, "This time it's different," only to find the same heartbreak waiting? How many times have you sworn it was love, only to realize it was desire dressed in disguise? Jung would say, of course it repeats, because the unconscious keeps pulling you into the same story until you face it, until you see that it was never love. It was always projection. And projection always betrays. This is the dark truth. Desire feels like love because it carries your missing pieces. But those pieces do not belong in another person. They belong in you. And until you reclaim them, you will keep falling for the same illusions. You will keep mistaking hunger for connection, obsession for destiny, and betrayal for fate. By now, the truth should be sinking in. Desire doesn't just hurt you by accident. Its betrayal is built into its very nature. Jung's darkest warning was that unless you learn to face your shadow, you will remain its prisoner, falling into the same cycles of longing, obsession, and heartbreak. You will call it fate. You will call it destiny. But in reality, it will always be betrayal. So what do you do? How do you protect yourself from something that lives inside you? Jung's answer is not to kill desire. It's to see it clearly. Because desire loses its power the moment you stop pretending it's love. Let's go deeper. When desire rises, the instinct is to surrender, to say, "This feels overwhelming. Therefore, it must be true." But Jung would tell you, the intensity of desire is not proof of love. It is proof of shadow. The more violent the pull, the more powerful the projection. And if you can pause, if you can ask, What part of myself am I seeing in this person? You begin to cut the strings. But most people don't pause. They chase. They surrender. They let desire blind them until the betrayal arrives. And then they blame the other person. They say, they lied, they changed, they abandoned me. But Jung would say, no, it was never them. It was your projection. The betrayal was not theirs. It was desire's. Think about this. Desire is never about the other. It's about you. That's why it feels so personal, so consuming. Because it's not them you're chasing. It's yourself. The missing pieces of your soul that you handed away. And as long as you keep projecting those pieces outward, you will keep being betrayed, because no one can carry your soul for you. Jung's solution was individuation, the process of reclaiming the pieces of yourself you have hidden in the shadow. The envy, the fear, the hunger, the longing, all of it must be faced. When you bring these into the light, you stop projecting them onto others. You stop mistaking lust for love. You stop calling obsession destiny. And most importantly, you stop handing your power to desire. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine a man who always falls for women who abandon him. Every relationship ends in the same betrayal. He tells himself, women can't be trusted. Love is pain. But Jung would say, the real problem is his shadow. Deep inside, he never faced his own fear of being left. He projected that wound onto every relationship. And so desire kept betraying him, giving him exactly what his unconscious expected. But the moment he faces the shadow, the moment he says, this is my fear, not their fate, he breaks the cycle. Or picture a woman who always desires men who control her. She says, it feels so powerful, so magnetic. But later, she feels suffocated, broken, betrayed. Jung would say, she has projected her unclaimed strength onto them. She feels weak, so she chases strength in others. But what she calls attraction is really dependence. And because of this, desire always betrays her by turning strength into domination. Only when she reclaims her own strength can she stop the cycle. This is the heart of Jung's teaching. Desire betrays because it comes from what you refuse to face. It is not love, it is shadow hunger. And no matter how many times you chase it, it will never complete you. It will only exhaust you. But here is the liberation. Once you see this, you stop expecting desire to give you what it cannot. You stop being shocked when the passion fades. You stop being devastated when obsession turns into emptiness. You begin to say, this was desire, and desire betrays. With that awareness, you are no longer a victim. You are awake. This doesn't mean you never feel desire again. It means you see it for what it is. You enjoy its fire without confusing it for love. You recognize its hunger without giving it your soul. And in doing so, you free yourself from its betrayal. Because betrayal only works when you believe the lie. Jung knew most people would never do this work. Most people will live their whole lives confusing desire for destiny. They will fall into obsession, heartbreak, and despair, always asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" And the answer will remain the same, because desire always betrays, and you never learned to see it. But you don't have to remain blind. You can choose individuation. You can choose to face your shadow instead of projecting it. You can choose to recognize desire for what it is, a fire that burns but never builds. And in doing so, you can stop betraying yourself by trusting what was always meant to fail. So let me leave you with this. The next time desire rises and you feel that pull, stop. Ask yourself, what part of me is this really about? What shadow am I seeing? What wound is calling out through this hunger? If you can answer those questions, you will see the betrayal before it arrives. And when you see it, you no longer have to fall for it, because the truth is simple. Desire will never complete you. Desire will never heal you. Desire will always betray you. Unless you take back the pieces of yourself you've been handing away, no amount of passion will save you. Jung's warning is clear. See desire for what it is, or remain a prisoner of its endless betrayals. So I'll ask you, has desire ever betrayed you? Have you ever mistaken its fire for love, only to be left with ashes? Share your story in the comments. I read every one of them. And if this opened your eyes, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Jung, Nietzsche, and dark psychology insights. And if you want to support Psychatic, consider leaving a super thanks to keep these deep explorations alive.